What's up, everybody? Pastor Carter here, and I want to welcome you to our new video series entitled Behind the Sermon. The intent of this series is to provide more information than I could have provided on Sunday morning in a 15 or 20 or 25 or sometimes 30-minute sermon. In some cases, that information is going to be very simple, just supplementary information, fun stories, interesting facts, things that kind of help flesh out, put color and vividness to the sermons from Sunday morning. In some cases, it'll be very technical, literary forms, understanding genres, understanding Greek and Hebrew syntax or translations or exegetical quandaries. And in some cases, it'll be my attempt to clarify something that I felt may have been controversial or not widely held as true by most Christians in America. That doesn't mean that it's not true, it just means that it needs explanation. Regardless of what the subject matter is, the entire hope of this particular video series is that in some way, form, or fashion, through understanding the Bible more deeply and having a bit more explanation, that you find a closer relationship with Christ. It's my deep and honest hope that through the sermon and through this video, you'll find out that the Bible is something that we can understand. It's complicated, it's difficult, it's complicated, it's difficult, it's not easy. But it is something that we can grab hold of and that we can trust our souls and our lives and our fates with. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get any video updates that we have. You can click subscribe below, or you can do whatever else a person does to subscribe to YouTube. Hopefully I cut that part out of this little intro video because it sounds asinine. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. Welcome to this week's episode of Behind the Sermon. I think you're going to enjoy this week as we're going to talk about and review something that I said in Sunday's sermon about what Paul said to Timothy in 1 Timothy about fighting for the gospel. Specifically, what we want to talk about is that word fight. And I went on a long diatribe explaining what that word was saying, what it was all about, and what I think it really meant to say to us. And I kind of want to show you how I got to that, how I came to that place, how I decided to focus on that word, and how I focused on that word, and where I got my information that I got that I then told you. The hope in this is that at some point in your walk with Christ and your religious life, you would be able to come to some of these conclusions on your own. You wouldn't need me necessarily to explain all this stuff to you, but you would have the method and also the resource list to accomplish these sorts of things. Now, I've got a couple of things that I want to show you. First of all, we're going to be using this little translation of the Bible. This is the English Standard Version of the Bible, and this is a lot of times what you'll find me preaching out of. That's not because I think it's the best translation, and in fact, I don't think it's one of the best translations, but it's very easy to read. And when you're going to break apart words and dig into Greek, it doesn't really matter nearly as much what you're reading here. Now, for you at home, if you're reading the Bible and you want to make sure you've got a pretty accurate translation, a translation that you can use that I really enjoy is this one. This is the Common English translation of the Bible. It's a really good translation. It's good to read. And frankly, the only reason I did not use it to study this is, as you can see, this is a normal Bible, and it's hard to put notes into it. On this one, it's not nearly as hard because this is only the book of 1 and 2 Timothy and Titus. And so I can open this up and you can see here where I've written notes on this because it has good spacing over here on the side, and then it's got all of this over here where I can write notes. And so that's really the only reason I use this particular translation of the Bible. And this is called I believe it's called the Illuminated Version of the English Standard Version of the Bible. Now, I will say this about the English Standard Version of the Bible before we get into the rest of all of this. It does come with a bit of an agenda, and that's something that you need to understand about reading your Bible. No matter what translation you read, whether it's the English Standard Version, or it is the Common English Bible, or what I think is one of the better translations in terms of accuracy, The RSV, the Revised Standard Version, or the NRSV, which is the official Bible of the Methodist Church. You'll see it, the little red Bible in your pews is going to be an RSV or an NRSV if you're a Methodist, the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. I think those are well translated, but the one thing that you have to understand about translations is they all come with an agenda, and the English Standard Version is no different. It comes with a particular agenda, and that agenda is the agenda of those who translated it. And in the case of the English Standard Version of the Bible, the translation is very reformed in nature. By reformed, I mean people who come from the theological heritage or descendants or derivatives of people like John Calvin, Zwingli, and Martin Luther. People coming from the Reformation. That's why they're called reformed. Now, I don't have any issue necessarily with the Reformation or those who are reformed, but I do disagree with their theology in some cases, particularly their theology and how it treats women. Many reformed people, reformed theologians, are complementarian in their treatment of women. That means that they don't see men and women as equals. They see women as complementing men, and in some cases, men complementing women. But they're not on equal footing. They're kind of like this. Men, women. And what that fleshes out to is they oftentimes are not going to let women be ordained. They're not going to let them serve the sacraments because they don't believe that that's the role that women ought to have. I think that's absolute trash. I think it's theologically indefensible. I think it's based on a bad translation of the Bible, and I think that it's ridiculous. But nonetheless, there's a lot of good stuff that comes from the Reformed tradition, and I think the English Standard Version of the Bible in some cases is one of those things. So that's the sort of the preface to all of this. Now we're going to get dug into the Bible. We're going to start looking at some things that happen in it. And we're going to look at 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 18 through 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch camera views here, and I'm going to go to a screen share by way of Zoom so that you can see my screen, you can see what I'm doing and how I go about it. What I really wanted to do is have like an above view on the Bible so that you could see it like this and you could see where I'm reading through and writing stuff, but I just don't have the technology to do that. So we're going to go to a screen share in Zoom. You'll be able to see my face probably kind of up in the corner, and we're going to go from there, and that's where we're going to record it from. All right, everybody, I've switched to my computer here, as you can see, and we're going to now, I'm going to show you now how I sort of come to the conclusions that I am able to come to sometimes in my sermons. And so I want to share my screen with you and show you some resources that I use a lot of times that you can use to help you understand things in the Bible a bit more. So I'm going to share my screen here and pull this up. Let's come on now. All right. So you can see this website here. This is, let me just get my face out of the way. You can see this website here. This is called blueletterbible.org right here. Blueletterbible.org. Come on, get this out of the way. How do I do this? There we go. So there it is right there, right? Blueletterbible.org. And this is a really, really great resource to use in understanding the Bible. And what you can do in it is that it you can type in, what book you want to read, James, right? The book of James. And you can also choose right there, I guess I failed to do that, what translation you want. So King James, New Living Translation, the New International Version, English Standard Version, the NASB. These are both very, very good. This was the one translated in 2020. This was in 95. You got some other less popular ones over here. This is the RSV, which used to be the Bible that was in the Methodist pews. Now it's the NRSV. And then over here, you've actually got a whole bunch of other languages. You have the Morphological Greek New Testament right here. So this is the New Testament in its original language. This is what's called the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the whole Bible. So it's translating the Old Testament Hebrew into Greek. And then you have right here the Latin Vulgate. So that's the Latin version of the Old and New Testament. So anyway, let's go RSV. No, let's do ESV because we already kind of talked about that. It's a little bit easier. And what we're looking at is 1 Timothy 1, 18 through 20. And press enter and poof, there it goes, right? So here you have it here. You have the area that we are talking about in this particular sermon this past Sunday, right? And so what I like to do is I like to go through and pick out the words that I really feel like I need to focus on in order to understand this particular set of verses. And so what I'll do in my Bible is I'll go through and I will highlight or circle um, major words that I think strike me. So, um, for me, I think this word charge is interesting. Entrust to you is interesting, in accordance with the prophecies previously made about you. I don't think that makes a difference. Then we get to the part that we'll focus on, that you may wage. This is probably one Greek word, so we'll highlight it. May wage the good warfare. We'll understand that. We think this is probably a word to pay attention to. This is as well. Maybe rejecting this. I think this is a phrase that would be good to understand, and then the rest of this, I don't know, doesn't seem that interesting or important. So that's what we do. We want to pay attention to those particular words right there, because they are kind of words that maybe stick out to us. And as you well know, the words we're actually looking at this week that we honed in on after I went through and looked at everything was this right here. So that was the place that I began to focus really a whole heck of a lot. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll show you how I eventually came to what I came to about this. So what you want to do is on your webpage here, you got blueletterbible.org, and you get this as our verses. You want to go over to tools, which is the section. This is the tools for this particular verse, and you can see all the stuff that pops up. And so what we want to do is click on tools, and it pulls this drop down menu right here, which is a lot of information. Most notably, though, is it is the Greek New Testament. It is the Greek New Testament that pops up right here. So this right here is the verse. What is that? Verse 18. That was, oh Lord, that moves. That's weird. Is this right here, but it's in Greek, right? So that's what that is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and try to find the words that we were paying attention to, right? Find the words that we were paying attention to and see what they actually say. Because sometimes you get these words in the New Testament and they don't actually mean what you think they mean, and they don't mean what people translate them as meaning. Or, as we will see, they carry with it maybe more meaning than we're able to put into this. So let's go down here and find this idea of war and warfare, and we'll look into it. Here we go. There's one. You fight, and then you get good fight. So here's your Greek word for good, kalos, kales, or no, kalein, kalos. And then here's your word for you fight, stratuo. Oh, and then you have the other one for fight as well, strateia. So they're actually probably, if you look at these words, it's sort of something to pay attention to. These words look a lot alike. I mean, even in the Greek, they look very, very similar. Strateia, strateo. So what you want to do is let's clear that. You want to click over here. Get out of there. You want to click on this. Right click, open a new tab. Right click, open a new tab. And this will give us this word and its definition and a lot about it, right? So you got a lot going on here. You get the transliteration of it, the pronunciation. You can listen to it. It's kind of a weird voice. I've done it a couple of times. Now you have in this all of the places that it occurs, and this is in the Greek New Testament. And then you get down in here and you can see this is dictionary aids. And so you can actually look at, what does Vine's Expository Dictionary say about this? So let's say view entry. There it goes. Soldier, literally serving as a soldier. Soldiers, morphologically, of spiritual conflict, or metaphorically. Gosh, I read that wrong. So there you go, right? That's what it's saying about it. Then you could go down here to sort of the online biblical usage. This is probably, you can look into this and say, what does that mean? It'll tell you. But get out of there. This is what it's used to mean right here. And so this is pretty important. To make a military expedition, to lead soldiers to war, to battle, spoken of the commander, to do military duty, be on active service, be a soldier, to fight. And this part right here is actually going to be really, really, really important right here. Spoken of a commander, because that's going to connect it to something that is going to set this word apart and make it pretty important to us. So now we go down a bit and we can keep looking, right? You keep looking at all this and you want to kind of imbibe all of this as much as you can. You really want to understand it, really dig deep into it and try to understand this word and write it down. I will oftentimes write it down so that I understand it. So we go, okay, that's what that word means, right? And if you want, you can click here and go into the etymology of it. That is sort of the how it's built. Stratia is the root of that. It's a army, a band of soldiers. Maybe we can go a little bit farther down into its background, and now we have lost it. To spread furnace, to spread with couches or divans. That doesn't make any sense. All right, so we go back to the second word. So we looked at this word right here. Now we want to go over here and look at this word. So this is talking about the word fight. And this is Paul telling Timothy to fight in his church. So this word is concerns us in terms of how we fight, right? So this is about right here. This is about how we fight. That's what that word is telling us. How. This word is the nature of the fight. I'm not going to write all that out because that'd be too hard to spell with all this. It's about the nature of the fight. Come on. So this is two different kind of understandings of this. And so we're going to go over here to this one. This is that second word. And what we see is it's basically the same thing, right? It's just a different sort of understanding of it. And it talks about an expedition, a campaign, a military service, warfare. So that's what we got here. We got two words that basically are meaning the same thing. And what this is over here. Oh, not yet. I don't want to get there. So that's what we got there. And so what I find myself doing, let me unshare my screen here. What I find myself doing is I look at those words and I look at it and I say, okay, so Paul says that this is a war and we are to fight. And my natural inclination there is to be a little bit curious as to what exactly that means. And we saw it, but I kind of wonder, well, what is it? What more does it mean? And specifically, a great question to ask about something in the New Testament or Old Testament is, why did they choose that word? Right? Why did they choose that word? In other words, are there other words that he could have chosen? So he uses this word right here, strateo, in both cases. It's very consistent. He uses those words, but are there other words for war in Greek? And so this is what I find myself doing. I'll go over here. This is the same website. Go back to ESV. And instead of typing in a verse, I'm going to type in a word. Search. Now, this is all Old Testament right here. So you can do two things. You can go down here to the bottom and say, I want to go over here. This is Isaiah to Revelation. So what may be a little bit easier is you can go to advanced options. Say I want to do New Testament. Let's search again. All right, pops up. First places it occurs, or what king going out to encounter another king in war, right? So we have it popping up right here in Luke. What we see, we go to that, say, well, let's look at this word war. Maybe it's the same word, strateuo, right? I'm not sharing my screen on any of this. Good Lord. So, I got lost here. Let me get out of here. So we want to look and see what other words might be able to be used here for war, right? And so we go here. We want to go back to the homepage of Blue Letter Bible. Let's go to English Standard Version. And instead of typing for a verse or searching for a verse, we'll search for a word. Poof, the word war, 210 times. Now we want to look at it in the New Testament because in the Old Testament, that's going to get a little wonky. So you see where I clicked there, advanced options, go to the New Testament, and then search again. Poof, there we have it. So this word war occurs 14 times in 14 verses, right? 14 times in 14 verses. And what's interesting is as I typed in war, maybe we can even type in warfare, and there's warfare. We can see where it pops up in Timothy, but you would think the word war would be the same, right? Warfare, war would be the same. So maybe this is popping up a different word. So we go here to Luke. Let's click on tools. We'll go down and find the word war. or battle. But there it is, battle. I mean, it's not, how's that any different than, what he's saying right here, right? Wage the good warfare, fight the good battle, whatever. We see that translation elsewhere. So how's that any different? And yet Paul uses a completely different word here. You can see it. He uses a completely different word. Let me circle that for you. Instead of the word strateuo, he uses the word polemos, the Greek word polemos. So let's see what that word actually means. So I'm going to go back here. Come on, mouse. Go back here. Polemos. Click on it, buddy. We see it means the same thing. Isn't that interesting? Warfare, soldier. Strategia, that is, means warfare, military service, warfare. Polemos, war, fight, battle, dispute, strife, quarrel. That's interesting. So this is not really all that helpful, is it? I mean, the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really mean anything different. It doesn't seem, right? So what you got to do then is you've got to start digging for new information. And I don't have time to go into it. But what you find is that when you get into these words and you start really, 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 really digging, and by online, I don't mean in like message boards or stuff like that. I mean in other places. What you find is that this word right here, strateuo, is very interesting in how it compares to something else. And that is, let's do this. This is, I found this. Look at here. Now I stumbled upon this. Oh, crud. You can't see this. Let me get back to the screen share. So look at here. I searched the etymology of strategy because I just happened to know because I spent significant time digging and eventually dug far enough to find out that look at this. Look at this. Strategos, strategia. Now wait. Look at this. Very similar word, right? Strateuo, strategia, stratia, very, very similar words. So these words are very, very similar. And as it were, you find out that this word, a lot of what causes this word in Greek is the same what causes this word, strategia in Greek. And so what we find out is that this word that Paul uses is the root, part of the root for our modern word strategy or generalship, strategos, strategum. This is the ancient root for a lot of our understanding of the concept of strategy. So what Paul is saying here, and I told you this past week, he's not just saying, hey, go fight a war, which is exactly what this word means. Polemos just literally means go fight. There's nothing more to it except for, in some cases, if you dig far enough, you find out that this word polemos really carries with it this sort of sense of like suddenness or a lack of planning or something of that nature, which is what I talked to you about this past week. And so, but this word, strateos doesn't mean that at all. It means warfare that was thought through, that was strategic. It literally means, it references like generalship. This is why I said this is really, really, really important to remember. Spoken of a commander to lead soldiers to war or battle, right? So what we're talking about here is not just a battle. We're talking about an approach to battle, an approach to war, and that is very different than the other word that Paul could have used. The word polemos, which just sort of means fight, there's no indication that there's thought that's put into it. There's no indication, let me stop sharing my screen, that it is premeditated or that it's systematically approached or anything like that. Polemos literally just means the fight. And in fact, if you dig far enough, you find that it really can kind of mean sort of sudden, just kind of like, this sort of vague and random aggression. In fact, let me start sharing my screen with you again. I told you this past week. Polemos means Hang on. Polemic. The etymology of polemic means controversial argument or discussion or controversy, right? A dispute, one that argues with it. An adjective pertaining to controversy or something of that nature, to engage in controversial argument. Do you see the difference between what this word polemos gave us in English and this word? That's a big difference in meaning, right? So we got one word that just sort of means to fight or to argue or whatever, stir up hostility. Oh, that's a weird ad down there, isn't it? History picks, weird. So you have this word that means sort of just to like argue. And in a lot of ways, it means, sort of suddenly and not premeditated. But then you get this word strategy. And so we can see here how I came to the conclusion that I did about this particular phrase. That you should wage the good warfare. This word wage means to sort of systematically and thoughtfully, premeditatedly approach war. The good warfare, and the warfare that we're called to fight for our faith and for the gospel is a warfare that is very thoughtful. This doesn't mean that we go out and just sort of vaguely and randomly and indiscriminately fight people who are opposing the gospel or anything of that nature. What it's saying is that what we do is we need to be thoughtful about how we approach the faith, how we approach our faith, and how we fight that gospel, fight for that gospel. So I hope this was helpful. One more resource I wanted to sort of turn you on to here that you can look for is a resource called Z Library. And by some standards, this is a pirated website, but it is helpful. There's a lot of books on it. You can just click that and you can go find anything you want. And apparently you can find very strange stuff and trashy romance novels. But there's a lot of really good stuff on here, right? And what I have been able to do, oh, wait a minute. Have I not? I didn't share the screen again. I'm so stupid. Here we go. This is Z Library. Let's get this out of here. So this is what Z Library looks like, right? There's some good stuff. I don't know what this is all about, but there's some good stuff in here. And what I have found in Z Library is, look at this. Letters to Timothy and Titus. So you can see there, this is by Gordon D. Fee, who is actually really, 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 really good. And if you go to this webpage and go down a little bit, you can find all kinds of stuff. And so just go here and you can find any number of things. You can find all kinds of biblical resources. You can find just about any book. Like I said, I've heard tell that it's a pirated website, but I don't know if that's for real or not, but it is a great resource and I've used it for a lot of different things. So that's all I've got. This was an absolute mess with the screen sharing, but it worked out, right? So I hope that was helpful to you. I hope it helped you understand how I got to where I'm going here. And if you got any questions about that, let me know. Have a great day. And you can see my picture back here. I really like it. It says, "Be not afraid." The most often repeated word in the Bible, phrase in the Bible. Be not afraid. Have a good day.